Okay, hello everyone at another PGWiP seminar. Today we are on a new room, room 234, and apparently they don't have a well-functioning laptop. So we are not visible today to the online audience. The camera is not working. So we're just gonna show you already the start of the PowerPoint. Otherwise you're looking at this PGWiP weird thing. So we're going into the void again. And then hope it works all fine. So we can hide this. Yeah. Super. Okay, again, welcome. Today we have Luca Mazzini with us. He did his bachelor's in Milan and spent some time in Munich, and then moved on to Bologna to do his master's. And now he ended up in Exeter for all kinds of processes and conflicts, whatever. But we don't have to talk about this now. So we can talk about it over wine. Anyhow,
long story.
Yeah. So he will talk today about triggered identity, the use of Macedonian ethnic by Blaundos in confrontation with the Roman Empire. So Luca, please tell us all about it.
Thank you for the presentation. Welcome to all. And before us talking specifically about Blaundos, I would like to have actually a short introduction about my thesis, my project thesis, about my PhD. So Blaundos is a case study for the meaning of the claims of Macedonian ethnicity or ethnic by the Hellenistic settlements in the area of Asia Minor, from the creation of the Roman province during the 133 BC until the first half of the 3rd century AD. So we are in the early Roman imperial period, basically. So this type of ethnic was actually claimed by several communities in this area, both in the civic coinages and in the inscriptions, especially from the 1st century BC until the half of the 3rd century AD. It was proved that the presence of Macedonian settlers in Asia Minor has a historical attestation from the early Hellenistic period. So we can see that after Alexander's conquest of the Persian Empire, it is known that many inhabitants from the Greek mainland and the Kingdom of Macedonia moved to Asia Minor to take over its fertile lands, and located especially in the historical regions of Phrygia and Lydia. As the studies also of the Hellenistic settlements of Coen and Billos, as have shown recently. An important part of the colonies was constituted by the soldiers, military settlers who came from Macedonia. And this could be argued, for example, from the inscription found at the colony of Thyatira in Lydia, where Macedonian officers and soldiers made a dedication to Seleucus Nicanor I, that is the official founder of this settlement in particular. For my project, I have actually 4 specific following questions that are, did the Macedonian ethnic became a useful tool, political tool under the Roman imperial period? Secondly, how was this Macedonian ethnic exploited by the communities in Asia Minor, considering also the legends of the foundations related to the Hellenistic dynasty, especially at the time of the Antonine and Severian dynasties? Third, why did several settlements in Phrygia, Bithynia, Cilicia, and Lydia claim a Macedonian ethnic instead of a Greek one, like Ionian, Doric, or Achaean, as other places in the same regions did in the Roman imperial period? For we can also think of the Panhellenion, the Adriatic Panhellenion. And fourth, could the claim of a Macedonian ethnic be evidence of a fictitious ancestry, imaginary ancestry, or actually a real connection to the past? I mean, not imaginative actually, but a concrete identity. Or we can see also from this paper a triggered identity. So let's start with a more general location of Blaundos. Blaundos, we can see that is in the far southeastern corner of the Phrygian region. So and during the Roman period was catalogued as included in the conventus, a district, of the province of Asia, whose capital was Sardis, actually. Sardis should be... no, sorry. So yes, western and southern Phrygia. So the archaeological site of Blaundos, in particular, is located in the Turkish province, modern Turkish, of Ujak. Ujak corresponds to the ancient Hellenistic settlement of Temenoturai, that is here. That was actually the main commercial center of the region. About Blaundos, we know that in the... Yeah, you see this connection. Really, actually badly made by me. I'm sorry, my glasses is, And so, by the way, why is important? Because Blaundos was basically, during the Hellenistic period, a garrison, a military garrison that patrolled this area and the connections within Temenoturai and Philadelphia. There is also the Meander River, we can see also. During the Roman imperial period, the population of Blaundos was actually of middle size, between 5,000 and 15,000 people, and we can say this also from the size of the theater, because the theater could host actually 2,000 citizens, basically. And we can say also from actually the archaeological surveys that were made during the second half of the 20th century, that actually all the public buildings like the theater, the gymnasium, the stadium, and the temple of Demeter were rebuilt during the Flavian period. So we are in the second half of the 1st century AD, so in the Roman period. We can see also that there is actually an agora, and sorry, but then it's not a signal in here, but there is also a bulle, a council. So actually Blaundos had all the civic institutions of a polis. So, when was founded Blaundos, basically? There are two main hypotheses. One that was founded during the 1st century BC as a settlement of Macedonian and Greek soldiers after the Alexander's conquest. This was argued by Toneman and Mitchell in particular. And a second hypothesis, it dates the settlements, the foundation, during the Attalid period. So we are actually in the later years of Eumenes' reign, so Eumenes II, so 160, 150 BC. Why we can say this? Because actually the first coinages, the Hellenistic coinages, date to this period, the first evidence. So also the inscriptions, where actually we have evidence of two different Attalid officials. I honestly argue that the Attalid foundation is too late as a foundation, because actually during the Attalid period we have only two evidence, and it cannot be approved the start of the coinage of this real start of the settlement. And also we also can know that actually the Attalid foundations were usually placed in rural regions that could actually be place of farming and estate holders. Instead, this type of settlement is a patrol, because we are actually in a real hilly region without actually fertile lands. So basically is a region of patrolling, strategical. And so I think that it was during the Seleucid period that we have this foundation. I cannot actually date precisely when exactly, but I know that is probably, also according to Tonem and Mitchell, this is a Seleucid foundation after the Alexander conquest, so at the end of the 1st century BC, beginning of the 3rd century AD. But this is actually a problem for Hellenistic research, Hellenistic history research. Okay, how actually I structure my analysis? First of all, I select all the civic coins and inscriptions related to Blaundos since the Hellenistic period, that basically from the 2nd century BC until the last emissions of Roman coinage dated to the rule of Treboniano Gallus. Why Treboniano Gallus? Because after that actually emperor, we have no more evidence of civic coinages and actually also civic decrees on inscriptions. And this actually is really common for all the area of Phrygia and Lydia. So, secondly, I analyze in particular the coins and inscriptions that have evidence of Macedonian ethnic, so a clear claim. Macedonian iconography. What is Macedonian iconography? Basically, the Macedonian shield or the Argead star. And third, the actually evidence of Macedonian onomastic. So, let's start from actually the analysis of the numismatic evidence. What is actually, we can see that the Macedonian ethnic does not appear on any of the issues of the Hellenistic period. There is no claim of Macedonian ethnic in this period. So we have two examples here. And basically, during the Hellenistic period, we have on 19 of the 20 issues dated to this period, the ethnic legend is Blaundos. I'm sorry, there is not actually, I did ask here. It's impossible to read, I'm sorry, guys. But Blaundos with M. So actually, it's not Blaundos, but Blaundos. And this spelling may be a proof of the resilience of the Luvian element in the language of the settlers, according to Fields, that is the archaeologist that excavated here. I'm studying more this aspect because I'm skeptical about this, because we have no actually proof of native cults or connected to the Luvian religion or Luvian identity here. So it's only a speculation. There is no reference to a Hellenistic dynasty, and this is interesting because I think that could be that Blaundos was not founded through actually a Hellenistic royal decree. Because if we think of Thyatira, for example, another Hellenistic settlement in Lydia, there was a specific decree by Seleucus that founded the city. In this case, we have no reference to Hellenistic dynasty. So, nor actually Macedonian iconography. We have no Argead star. We have no actually, for example, also a reference to Alexander the Great, nor of all of these actually features that can be connected to Macedonian identity. And actually, also, for example, in the iconography, we have a real traditional Greek style iconography. So on 10 coinages, there is the head of Zeus. In the first coinage is an example. 6 coinages present the head of Apollo, 2 of Heracles, and 2 of Dionysus. On the reverse of some coinages, there is also a possible allusion to Demeter. That is also the main temple of Demeter, if we can remember, was connected to the main temple of this settlement, also in the Roman period, was connected to Demeter. And this is also interesting because we are not, I repeat, in a region that is fertile. There is no place for actually for some type of cultivations. So Demeter is the only female divinity represented on the civic issues of Blaundos. By the way, the legends related to the Olympian gods do not have any native epitaphs, and the representative style does not reveal any mark of Luvian or pre-Greek cultural identity. Zeus is depicted with his traditional attributes, the laurel wreath and the eagle. We can see here also the eagle. I hope that is quite clear. Apollo's head actually has the laurel wreath as well, while on the reverse of the coins there are usually a bow and a quiver connected to Apollo. Actually, in the second one we have the head of Dionysus, and on the reverse the Thyrsos. That is actually a usual attribute of this god. So another relevant point for these Hellenistic emissions is the lack of civic magistracies in the legends. So it could be also that at that time there were not still actually institutionalized, civic institutions, because we have lack of civic magistracies, or maybe this settlement was still dependent from actually the royal authority, or was actually not small and not big enough to have actually civic institutions. And this changed only with the correspondence of the takeover of the Roman authorities in the regions. So we can go to the first civic issues under the Roman emperors. There is an interesting gap between the last emission of the Hellenistic civic coins, that is dated actually to the reign of Eumenes II, and the start of the Roman imperial coinages. Because until Nero, we have no trace of civic coinages for these settlements. And the first one is interesting, the first civic coinage under the Roman Imperial Empire, because also the name, you can see in the legend, changed. The name of the settlement is not more Blaundos, but Blaundos with a B. So there is also a change in, we can see in the representation of the collective identity. And more also interestingly, there is also in these coins the first actually proof of a civic magistracy. In this case, the name of the magistrate is Apollo Theotimides. So Apollo, this actually magistrate, held a religious epithet actually. And this could mean that this figure was a member of a local priesthood. And so we already see a change for the Roman period, but we have still no evidence of a Macedonian ethnic or Macedonian iconography. And this actually, if we go further to the, I hope that this actually is quite clear. I actually analyze all the civic coinages during the Roman imperial period. And it emerges that during the 1st century AD, the issues with a Macedonian ethnic from Vespasian rule, and now I will explain more, constituted 57% of all the issues. And the overall monetary production consisted only of 7 issues. So we have still not really developed the monetary production. This changing in the 2nd century AD, when the monetary production of Blaundos increased with a peak during the reign of Marcus Aurelius. And especially in the reign of the Marcus Aurelius, we have a percentage of Macedonian ethnic that increased up to 46%. But the explosion of the use of Macedonian ethnic dates to the first half of the 3rd century AD, with a Macedonian ethnic that constitutes the 60% of all the coinages, the civic coinages. Okay, one thing is, of course, that the strong inflation that struck the Roman Empire in this period of the Roman history appeared to have influenced also the trend of the monetary production in Blaundos. But it's also important that the increase of the Macedonian ethnic is not dependent from the inflation. There is still a proportional increase of this. So the evidence indicates that the presence of the Macedonian ethnic in the numismatic reached its peak in the first half of the 3rd century AD. So let's go to the coin of the first Macedonian civic issue. That is the issue coin. The emission issued during Vespasian. So the 3 coinages with the Macedonian ethnic issued under Vespasian, from the point of view of the iconography, have no sign of discontinuity with respect to the reign of Nero. On the reverse, there are Greek gods usually depicted in the issues of Blaundos, so Dionysus, Apollo, and Demeter. However, for the first time and uniquely in the monetary history of Blaundos, the public officer in charge of the 3 issues, a certain Tiberius Claudius Phoenix, I think is also in the legend of your handout, includes the initials of the proconsul of the province of Asia at that time. That was Asconius Silius Italicus. We know about him that Pliny the Younger, in a letter to his friend Caninius Rufus, said that he was among the principes civitatis, and thanks to the good administration of the province of Asia. So is a sign probably that this proconsul can be related to some kind of his benefactions to the settlement of Blaundos. And I argue also that the presence of the governor's name in the 3 civic coinages testify to a direct intervention, probably to sustain the building program set up in the same period, because as I said in the first part of my presentation, the Gymnasium, the Agora also, and the Temple of Demeter, Charis, were reconstructing during the Flavian period. Okay? So, the first use of the Macedonian ethnic by the community of Blaundos could be motivated by an official event. The civic colleges were dedicated by the Blaundians as Macedonians because the proconsul, the Roman official, Asconius Silius Italicus, was probably the first proconsul or Roman authority who had ever visited or, by the way, contributed directly to the development of the settlement of Blaundos. So the identity of Macedonian, or the Macedonians, was triggered by this type of intervention. It could have been this that boosted the settlers to define clearly the Macedonian identity in the public sphere for the first time in their history. As a matter of fact, of the 4 civic issues made under the name of this Tiberius Claudius Phoenix, 3 are the ones that present the initials of the governor and also the claim of the Macedonian ethnic. In the only one that does not present the name and the position of the proconsul, there is no reference to the Macedonian ethnic. There is only the ethnic Blaundians, so there is no double ethnic. The coinages of the Antonine era with the Macedonian claim have also another peculiar feature, and call them the coins of the Senate type. So we are during the Antonine era. 3 of them have on the obverse this personification of the deified Roman Senate. That is this, the first on the obverse, represented as a bust of a young man, while on the reverse the claim of the Macedonian ethnic. This type of representation occurred only 8 times on the surviving Roman imperial civic coinages of Blaundos. More importantly, the coins of the Senate type always include the Macedonian ethnic in their legends. So, all the Senate type coinages date from the second half of the 2nd century AD, as I say, in the Antonine era. And this type of iconography, the Senate type, actually was widespread in other cities of Asia Minor. The cult of the Roman Senate in the civic coins comes most exclusively from the Roman province of Asia, and as also Farni has demonstrated in an article. Moreover, there is no evidence for this type of cult during the Republican period, but only from the reign of Tiberius onwards. So, Erskine about this also argues the cult of the Roman Senate met with the imperial approval. So again, a direct Roman intervention. And so, in the case of Blaundos, it seemed that the worship of the most important Roman institution triggered also the pride of being Macedonian for the civic community. The glorification of the Senate in the coins, a way to publicly express the allegiance of the small settlement to the Roman authority, is accompanied by the exaltation of the Macedonian ancestry. So, we can see again that the Macedonian identity is strictly connected to the relationship between Rome and this civic center. Why, again, there is a peak in the first half of the 3rd century AD? In my opinion, this is also motivated by the military campaigns to restrain the Parthian aggressions on the eastern borders. And this compelled also a direct presence of the imperial authority. Let's think also of Marcus Aurelius and the military campaigns of Philip and Treboniano Gallus. And we can see also in one of the literary sources that we have, Polyenus, we are in the second half of the 2nd century AD, that there is a literary parallel between the Macedonians, Romans, and Persians, Parthians. So one of my hypotheses is also that during the first half of the 3rd century AD, the Macedonian identity was important for these settlements to publicly actually have a connection with the Roman power in confrontation with the Parthian Empire. So let's go to actually to the epigraphic evidence. About the public inscriptions, the overall amount of the Blaundos epigraphic database actually for the analyzed period, so the 3rd century BC, second half of 3rd century AD, consists only of 37 inscriptions, so it's not so big. And actually, I divided also, we can see here also only the public inscriptions related to honorary inscriptions and also civic decrees or religious inscriptions, not the funerary ones. About the funerary ones, actually, we have only 11 inscriptions. And here, in the funerary, there is no reference to the ethnicity or to the ancestry of the people deceased, I mean, of the people remembered. The only Latin inscription attested for this category is the earliest evidence of Italic presence in the region of Blaundos. It dates from the beginning of the 1st century AD. It is important because the family of Lolli, which carried this funeral inscription, presents also the name of the civic tribe. However, these individuals do not claim to be Romans or Italians, I mean, or from actually another type of Italian tribe ethnic. Thanks to the funerary inscriptions, we can assume that the population of Blaundos absorbed culturally the Latin settlers that came there since the early Roman imperial period in the 1st century BC, 1st century AD, quite actually soon. Indeed, the 10 funerary inscriptions of 11 are dated to the 1st century AD, and only one is dated to the late Hellenistic period. About the Roman imperial funerary inscriptions written in Greek, 6 were set by individuals with Latin names. So it's interesting that the Latin population, actually, of the settlement used the Greek language. There is a bilingual document dated always to this period that presents 2 brothers with the same name, Lucius Peticius, recorded in both Greek and Latin. So Luci Petici, Luci Fili Salve in Latin, and then the same text in Greek. So it is clear from this sample that the claim of a Macedonian ancestry for their funerary aspect was not important to define the settlers and actually was not used at all. Moving to the 26 public inscriptions located in the territory of Blaundos or citing its community, I took into consideration only the ones where it is possible to define the dating, the genre, the individual, or the community that erected them. So you can see also here. So the remaining inscriptions that fulfill all these parameters consist of 17 stones. Figure 5 shows the reference, the date, the genre, the dedicator who presided over the inscription, and the alphabet used. We have evidence only of 2 public inscriptions dated to the late Hellenistic period. But they are really important because you can see, let's see. Because they are, okay, one is this one. Sorry, I forgot. It's 2nd century BC. 2nd century BC is honorary and was made by Philocrates, for example. And they're actually civic decrees. And here also the demos is cited as a civic institution. One inscription was officiated by Phileteros, the priest of the cult of Athena Nikephoros and Homonoia, the personification of Homonoia. He dedicated the seal to Athena, the Homonoia, and the people. Before the word demos, there is no reference to a Macedonian ethnic. And the text in this part of the inscription does not have missing letters, so there is no missing part. So we know for sure that the Macedonian ethnic was not used. So, in another one, a civic decree voted by the demos of Blaundos in honor of Hemia, another priest, the demos does not claim any type of ethnic, again, and does not even use the adjective Blaundeon to define itself as a community. Interestingly, this Hemia was the granddaughter of Theotimides. Theotimides is a name that appears also in 4 Hellenistic issues, and in the coinages of Theotimides, the community of Blaundos was still identified with the collective name of Blaundeon, not Blaundos. So this could be why, actually, in this decree, they don't use the ethnic Blaundeans. So of the 17 inscriptions that we have here, 9 date from the Flavian era. So this confirms that the building activities increased significantly in this period, because 8 of the fabric of these inscriptions resulted to be set to celebrate the erection of public buildings, such as the temples of Demeter and the Gymnasium. There is no reference to the Macedonian ancestry or to another type of cultural identity in the Flavian inscriptions, except for one case. This apparently goes against the outcomes of the monetary survey, but there are 2 facts to consider, in my opinion. First, the coinages made under the reign of Vespasian that present the Macedonian ethnic were only the ones where the name of the proconsul of the province is presented. And in these inscriptions, there is no reference to the proconsul. In the Flavian coinages that do not contain the proconsular initials, there is no trace of the Macedonian ethnic. So, secondly, most of the Flavian inscriptions appear to be erected by 3 private citizens: Mummius, Gaius Mummius, Caius Octavian, and Caius Menecrates. Only 2 were not erected by them, but always they refer to Gaius Mummius, so they are private dedications. This means that there are a form of private benefactions where the civic community, the civic institutions, does not face a Roman imperial official authority. In my opinion, this explains the lack of identity claims. Another interesting point is the presence of a Latin and Greek benefactor that use a double linguistic register. So, for example, Gaius Mummius and Caius Menecrates erected public inscriptions, both using the Latin and the Greek languages. It is strong evidence of the presence of the coexistence and the mutual acceptance of the Latin and Greek communities in Blaundos in a public space. There is only one apparent exception for the Flavian era about the lack of ethnicity or ethnic, different ethnic from Blaundean. It consists of honorary inscription that you can see also in this table on a base of a statue found at Inai, that is a modern place very close to the archaeological site of Blaundos, dated to the 88 AD. There are 2 actually consistent differences with the rest of the Flavian public inscriptions recorded. First, this inscription was erected by a collective identity that called itself with the name of the Roman settlers of Neis. Neis was a settlement which was included in the territory of Blaundos. Secondly, 2 missing pieces of information do not allow a definitive conclusion about the lack of the Macedonian ethnic: the name of the person whom the Roman settlers honored and the other community which contributed to the erection of the inscriptions. Indeed, the exact translation of the 5th line, I'm sorry, there is no actually the text for you. The text is the Roman settlers of Neis and also missing test, Bacat. The word katoikuntes, that is settlers, the settlers, is followed by 2 terms, that is te kai. It's clear that there is another community that make this honorary decree. And it is highly likely, in my opinion, that another community was cited. Perhaps the other collective community would be the Macedonian one, the Macedonian actually settlers, for example, or the Macedonian boulé. And the individual honored could be a Roman public official, perhaps the Roman proconsul, Asconius Italicus. We don't know, actually. It remains a mere conjecture because of the missing part of the test. But the present description does not invalidate my theory about the use of the Macedonian ethnic in the public inscriptions and in the coinages by the civic community of Blaundos. According to the list carved on the stone found at Ephesus, and reported also by Pliny the Elder, we saw that Blaundos was included in the administrative district of Sardis. So, in this inscription, that is dated during the reign of Domitian, the community is referred only as Blaundenoi. But why? Because this decree was actually of the koinon of the Alsace province. So it was actually a decree related to the internal politics of the Greek city-states, not referred actually to the Roman. There was not actually a relation between the Roman officials and the Greek city-states. In my opinion, that's why actually in that case also there is not the double ethnic Blaundenoi, Blaundean Macedonians. Sorry. So from the 2nd century AD, only 2 public inscriptions survive. In the first case, a certain Philocrates was honored by the Blaundos community with a statue because of his patriotism. The homeland honored the patriot Philocrates, son of Antonianus. The placement of the statue was secured by Philocrates himself, of course. We can see that the people of Blaundos honored their own fellow citizen without referring to his ethnicity. Okay, also here we have no reference to Macedonian ethnic. It is possible that Philocrates has Greek origins and that his father acquired the Roman citizenship under an Antonine emperor, as the name would suggest. So, within the public space limited to the members of the community of Blaundos, it seems that the claim of a Macedonian ancestry has no presence. Philocrates is honored because he is a patriot, and the word patris included, I mean, it does not include other type of ethnic. It's not Macedonian patris or Greek patris or any type of ethnic. The second inscription, dated to the 2nd century, was made by the high priest named Flavia Magna. She honors the emperor Antoninus Pius, Lucius Verus, and Faustinus in quality of high priest, but still is an individual dedication, private dedication, and she did not put the inscription on behalf of the civic community of Blaundos, so no reference to Macedonian ethnic. If we intersect the numismatic and... how much time I have? Perfect. So if we intersect the numismatic and the epigraphic data collected from Blaundos, it can be noted that there is a quantitative trend similar to the one of the monetary production. In the first half of the 2nd century, during the reigns of Trajan and Hadrian, interestingly, there are no numismatic and epigraphic evidence attested. And this I cannot explain why. The 4th group of the public inscriptions that I analyze now are dated to the first half of the 3rd century AD. 2 of these inscriptions were erected again by individuals on their own behalf, although they both held the public office of archon. That is like, I don't know how to translate in English, is more general commander, main officer. As a consequence, there is no reference also here to the overall community of Blaundos, and so to a Macedonian ancestry. One interesting thing is that Marcus Aurelius Timotheus, that is one of these private, actually of these individuals, also issued a civic coinage under the reign of Caracalla without any reference to the Macedonian ancestry. While Tiberius Claudius Alexander issued one civic coinages with the name of Blaundenoi, followed by the Macedonian ethnic. And actually, this is remain a weak point of my research because I don't understand what is the discrepancy in this way, in this case. If we go to the last chronological group, so there is only one inscription in the first half of the 3rd century AD, with the explicit reference to the Macedonian ethnic. It is important because actually is a decisive proof of the presence of the Macedonian ethnic, of the Macedonian claim as a political tool used by the civic institutions of Blaundos in front of the actually Roman imperial power. And it is this, actually. So it consists of honorary inscription found at the model site of Göbek, in Turkey always, but it was allegedly brought there from the nearby Sulmeli, that is the model site of Blaundos. So it is from the Severian period, as we will see. So the translation is the council and the people of the Blaundean Macedonians honored the chestes Caius Asinius Iulianus, the mightiest son of the consul Caius Asinius Proximus Quadratus, benefactor in all the things and founder of the city, under the second year of charge of Aurelius Glyconis Niger. So we can see now two things: Blaundeion Macedonum, so the double ethnic, and Euergeten Caec Tisten. So the inscription cites Asinius Proximus Quadratus, consul during the 3rd century AD. However, the strongest hint of the datation is the name of the magistrate who is honored in the civic decree, his son, Asinius Iulianus. And this figure was the proconsul, again, of the province of Asia in the 2nd quarter of the 3rd century AD. It appears that the civic institution of Blaundos explicitly expressed the Macedonian ancestry when a direct intervention of the Roman proconsul was involved in the city, as it happened during the proconsulate of Asconius Silius Italicus. So, as a matter of fact, this is the only inscription related to Blaundos where the official charge of proconsul is cited. And we can say that there was actually direct benefaction toward the Blaundos, because the consul Asinius, also the father, is actually celebrated as founder of the city, Tisten, and Euergeten is benefactor also. So, sorry. So the present inscriptions confirms that the Macedonian identity was claimed in front of the proconsul, and the civic institution again claimed to be Macedonian. The community of Blaundos recognized and honored the son of this really high-ranked Roman official, and declared also the memory of being Macedonian colonies, despite the fact that it was a mixed community at this point. We have seen that in the French speech there were Greek, Latin individuals, and also there is no reference to Macedonian ethnic at all in that type of inscriptions. The name of the archon is also revealing. All the civic coinages issued under the jurisdiction of Glyconis III actually present the Macedonian ethnic on the reverse of the coins. So, despite the fact that only these honorary inscriptions can be classified as a public document by the demos and the bullae in the Roman imperial period, it is a strong evidence in support of actually the Macedonian ethnic claim only in these public connections. I mean, in this public type of public inscription. So, thanks to the epigraphic and numismatic analysis, it can be assumed that the Macedonian ancestry became a useful tool for Blaundos only under the Roman imperial regime, and exclusively for political reasons. I mean by this statement that the Macedonian ethnic compares only as an ethnic self-definition or self-image of the civic community of Blaundos vis-à-vis the Roman Empire, more specifically from the reign of Vespasian onwards. Indeed, there is no trace of Macedonian ethnic in the honorary inscriptions or civic decrees, nor in the civic coins dated to the Hellenistic period. The Macedonian ethnic seemed to be claimed by the civic institutions only in front of a Roman official authority that has intervened directly in the administration of the urban settlement. First, this is demonstrated by the civic coins struck under the name of the proconsul Asconius Silius Italicus, and by the civic issues with the personification of the Roman Senate. There is always, in this occasion, the double ethnic Macedonians, Blaundeians. Secondly, in the only civic decree remaining for the Roman imperial period, the council and the popular assembly of Blaundos used the Macedonian ethnic to honor another proconsul, Asinius Proximus Quadratus, probably responsible for other type of benefactions. This permits us also to answer to another questions. So that is also for my actually broader research. In this case, we can see that the community exploited the Macedonian ethnic in the public space only in relation to a Roman authority and for political reasons. So why actually Blaundos chose a Greek ethnic instead of a Greek one, as other Phrygian cities did in the Roman imperial period. This is, I think, because the initial settlers of Blaundos were actually Macedonians, soldiers who arrived there at the end of the 4th century BC, beginning of the 3rd century BC, after the Alexander campaign. And so the memory of the Macedonian garrison, that was an isolated, as I can see, an isolated actually community. So we can see also that this type of geographical isolation could actually determine the survival of the memory of the first Macedonian settlement. So I argue that the use of Macedonian ethnic represents not a case of imagined ancestry, but of triggered identity. The claim of the Macedonian identity cannot be viewed separately from the political relationship with Rome at the time. The intervention of the Roman administration in the mining and probably in the building activity compelled the local authorities to affirm an ethnic that did not actually correspond more with the actual components of the civic community. The honorary inscriptions of the Roman period reveal the presence of rich Latin and Greek freedmen as benefactors of the city, who called Blaundos simply fatherland, without any ethnic connotation. However, as collective identity in front of Rome, they chose the status of Macedonians, in order also to be a worthy treaty partner of the Roman Empire. As a conclusion, it seems that epigraphic and numismatic evidence reveal that the claim of the Macedonian identity at Blaundos is a case study of public triggered self-definition in front of a strong external political authority. Blaundos became proud of being Macedonian in front of the Roman imperial power to claim symbolically its politically actually pride and to strengthen its ties with Rome at the same time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot, Luca.
Thank you to you and for the patience.
Now, before we're going to move to questions, and so we're going to try to shut the live streaming because you're not invited. So. Okay, thank you so much for watching again, and see you next week.